Hotspot with Loveth.
Sarah Whitman considered herself lucky. She'd been married to Jonathan for nearly a decade, and theirs was a life most people would envy. Jonathan was a successful businessman, hard-working, dependable, and always there for her in ways that made her feel cherished. Together, they had built a life that seemed almost perfect. Their home, nestled in a quiet suburb, was filled with laughter and warmth. They spent weekends exploring art galleries, trying out new recipes, or simply curled up on the couch with a good movie. They'd even started talking about adopting a child, as starting a family of their own hadn't worked out. Jonathan always assured her that it was all right and that their love was enough to fill any gaps in their lives. Yet, despite their shared dreams, Sarah sometimes felt an unexplainable distance between them, a distance she couldn't quite name, but one that seemed to widen with each passing year. Jonathan had been traveling more frequently for work, and though he'd call and send pictures, his absence lingered like a shadow. One cold November afternoon, as Sarah was sorting through the day's mail, she came across an unmarked envelope. Curious, she opened it, only to find a photograph inside. The picture showed Jonathan standing beside a woman and a young boy who looked around 7 years old, laughing and holding his hand. Her stomach churned as she stared at the photo, her mind racing. She could recognize Jonathan anywhere, but the look on his face, the relaxed, joyful expression, was one she hadn't seen in years. And the woman beside him, with her arm looped through his, looked too comfortable, too close to him. There was no note attached, no explanation, only the unsettling image that seemed to shatter her perfect world in an instant. Heart-pounding, Sarah tried to dismiss the image as a misunderstanding, a random photograph from a corporate event, but deep down, she knew it was something more. She spent the rest of the evening replaying every moment with Jonathan, looking for signs of this secret life she was now convinced he'd been hiding. That night, Sarah confronted Jonathan, her voice barely concealing her anger and hurt. "I got a strange letter today, Jonathan. Care to explain?" She held up the photo, watching as his face paled, eyes widening in shock. "Sarah," he ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit she'd come to recognize over the years. "I didn't want you to find out this way." Her heart sank as the pieces began to fall into place. "So, it's true. Who are they, Jonathan?" He swallowed, guilt written all over his face. "Her name is Emma. The boy he's my son, Max." The words hit her like a physical blow, and she struggled to catch her breath. The idea that he had a son, a whole other life she knew nothing about, was too much to bear. "How long has this been going on?" "A few years," he admitted, his voice trembling. "I met Emma just before we got married. I didn't know then that she was pregnant. I only found out a couple of years ago." Sarah felt her chest tighten, anger and betrayal coursing through her. "And you never thought to tell me. You made me believe we had a future together, talked about starting a family, when you already had one." Jonathan looked down, ashamed. "I was scared. I didn't want to lose you, Sarah. I thought I could handle it, that I could keep both parts of my life separate. But it's all fallen apart." Sarah turned away, tears streaming down her face. The man she loved, the life they'd built together, felt like a lie. Over the next few days, Sarah felt like a ghost in her own home. She barely spoke to Jonathan, struggling to process the betrayal. Every time she looked at him, she saw the image of him with Emma and Max, his other family. The trust they'd shared had crumbled, leaving her with a choice she wasn't ready to make. On the third night after her discovery, Jonathan approached her, his face drawn and weary. "Sarah, I know I've hurt you, more than I can ever make right. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to understand, I love you. You are my world. She looked at him, feeling a surge of conflicting emotions: love, anger, sorrow, and a desperate need to understand. "Then why, Jonathan? Why did you keep this from me?" He took a deep breath, his gaze filled with remorse. "Because I was selfish. I was terrified of losing you. I thought that if I kept everything hidden, I could keep you both. But I see now that it was wrong. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'll do anything to make this right." "Make it right," she repeated bitterly. "How do you make up for something like this? You've lied to me for years, Jonathan. I don't even know who you are anymore." Jonathan's shoulders slumped, defeated. "I'll give you time. Whatever you need, I'll do it." Sarah didn't respond. She needed space, time to decide whether to walk away or confront this betrayal head-on. But either way, she knew her life would never be the same. A few weeks later, Sarah decided to take some time off work and travel to clear her mind. However, before she left, curiosity got the better of her, and she found herself at a small park near Jonathan's office. She'd heard him mention that Emma and Max lived nearby, and she couldn't resist the urge to see them. As she sat on a bench, watching the children play, she spotted Max almost immediately. He had Jonathan's dark hair and dimples, a painfully familiar reminder of the life she'd envisioned with her husband. She watched him laugh as he played with other children, her heart aching with a mixture of jealousy and grief. This was the life Jonathan had hidden from her, a life that was right in front of her eyes, but one she could never truly be a part of. Lost in thought, she didn't notice Emma approach until she heard a voice beside her. "You're Sarah, aren't you?" Sarah looked up, startled, and nodded. Emma's face softened with an expression of understanding. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," she said quietly. "I wanted him to tell you the truth. But he was too scared. Why didn't you come forward?" Sarah's voice was tight, holding back tears. Emma sighed, glancing toward Max. "Because I didn't want to break up his marriage. I knew about you from the beginning, and I told him he should be honest with you. But he made his choice, and I respected that, even if it wasn't fair to you." Sarah stared at Emma, her heart torn between anger and an odd sense of camaraderie. They were both victims of Jonathan's lies, two women bound by an unspoken bond of betrayal. "I don't know if I can ever forgive him," Sarah whispered, feeling the weight of her decision pressing on her. Emma nodded, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I understand. Whatever you decide, just know that it's okay to choose yourself." In the weeks that followed, Sarah found strength in unexpected places. She reconnected with friends she'd lost touch with and sought therapy to help process her emotions. Slowly, she began to rediscover herself, peeling back the layers of pain to find the person she'd been before Jonathan. When Jonathan finally approached her, hoping for reconciliation, Sarah was ready to confront him. "Jonathan," she said, her voice steady but firm, "I've thought about this a lot. I love you, but I can't just forget what you did. You betrayed my trust, and that's not something that can be mended overnight." His face fell, but he nodded, understanding. "I'll wait, Sarah. As long as it takes." But Sarah shook her head. "I'm not sure I want to fix this. I need time to find myself again, without the weight of your lies." Months turned into years, and Sarah carved out a new life, one filled with purpose and self-discovery. She returned to acting, something she'd abandoned during her marriage, finding solace and expression in each character portrayal. And though Jonathan occasionally reached out, she found peace in their separation, realizing that sometimes, choosing herself was the bravest choice she could make. In the end, Forgotten Vows wasn't just a story of betrayal but a journey of healing. Sarah learned that life could continue after heartbreak, that broken vows didn't define her. And while she might never forget the pain of Jonathan's deception, she moved forward with a stronger sense of self, ready to embrace the next chapter of her life, on her own terms.